Hi everyone, I want to try to do a video explaining why I believe the Lord is going to return in 2018, even though it didn't happen on the Feast of Tabernacles or during the Feast of Tabernacles. I believe the feast itself is pointing to the year 2018. I believe that's the important thing to take away from the Feast of Tabernacles, and I want to talk a little bit more about the Feast of Tabernacles and what it represents. I want to explain that a little bit more, but first I want to go over some of the evidence for 2018, and I want to go over some of the tables that I've done throughout the past couple of years that seem to confirm this year, which is actually technically the year 2017. I've shown why this is actually the 2017th year since year 1, because there was no year 0. So this is technically the year 2017, and I believe the year 2017 corresponds with the Hebrew year 5777, which is the Jubilee year. And I've also shown why the Hebrew calendar also starts with year 1, and so the Hebrew calendar is off by year as well. And so this year, this current year, even though it's 5779, it should technically be 5778 if the year begins on Tishri 1. There's still the possibility that the year doesn't begin until Nisan 1, because that is the law that God gave to Moses in the book of Leviticus, that the years would begin with the month of Nisan. And so if that's the case, there's the possibility that this year could even be extended until Nisan 1. But what I believe this table confirms is that the number 27 is synonymous with 117, the 117 code, which represents the year 2017. And this year correlates with the Hebrew year 5777, because the very first line that comes up in this matrix is the words 777 years. And then the very last line in this matrix is 120 years, and this is the 120th Jubilee. Okay, so I believe God is confirming with this table that the year 2017, which I believe is abbreviated or represented by the number 27, is synonymous with 117, the 117 code. I believe they both represent the year 2017, that it's synonymous with the Hebrew year 5777, and that it is the 120th Jubilee. Okay, so now I want to show you another table that I did. This one was on the words Theophany and Jesus, and I'll go ahead and show you what the word Theophany means. Okay, I went ahead and enlarged this so you can see it a little bit better. I just Googled the definition for the word Theophany, and you can see it means a visible manifestation to humankind of God, or God. It comes from the Greek word theos, which is God, and phanein, which means to show. So it means to show God, or the appearance of God. Okay, so when I did this table, it came up with 27 matches. Again, I believe the other table that I did on the number 27 confirms that the number 27 represents the year 2017. It's the same as the 117 code, and it's the same as the Hebrew year 5777, which I believe we could still technically be in up until Nisan 1. Okay, and so I'm just playing the video here. I'm showing the scriptures that come up in verse 27 that talk about the Lord coming in all of his glory. It comes up in verse 27 in all of the Gospels, in Matthew 24 verse 27, Luke 21 verse 27, Matthew 16 verse 27, Matthew 13 verses 26 and 27, and it comes up in John 1 verse 27. Okay, you can see that right there. It says, he it is who coming after me is preferred before me, whose shoes latchet I am not worthy to unloose. So this was talking about the Lord's first coming as well as his second coming. And the Lord came the first time in 27 AD. So this is confirming the year 27 AD. But all the other scriptures are talking about the Lord's second coming, and they come up in verse 27. The book of John's a little bit different, and it's talking about the first coming as well as the second coming, showing that it also comes up in Haggai 2:7, where God says that he will shake all the nations, and the desire of all nations shall come, and will fill this house with glory, saith the Lord of hosts. So again, you have the number 27 with Haggai 2:7. Also comes up in Zechariah 2:7, where it says, deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwellest with the daughter of Babylon. And I was talking about how this could also correlate with the time of Christmas. This was a couple of years ago when I added this scripture in here, and it was pointed out that it says, ho, ho, come forth and flee from the land of the north, saith the Lord, for I have spread you abroad as the four winds of heaven, saith the Lord. So this sounds like it's talking about Santa Claus. That may be where that saying came from, where Santa Claus is depicted as saying ho, ho, ho. So maybe that came from Zechariah verses 2:6-7, but it's in verse 7, which makes number 27, where it says, deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwellest with the daughter of Babylon. And then, of course, man was created in Genesis 1:27 and Genesis 2:7. Jesus is the Son of Man, and he's the first Adam and the last Adam. And so I was going over the scriptures over there. Okay, so now I want to show you the matrix that this came up in. And the matrix that it came up in is in Matthew 20, verses 12 through 17. So you have 20:17 over here, and this is where it says, and Jesus was going up to Jerusalem. He took the 12 disciples apart, and on the way he said unto them. And so you see this sentence over here is not finished. It begins in verse 20:17, but this sentence continues in verse 20:18. Okay, I'll just show it to you in the blue letter Bible. You can see verse 20:17 over here. It says, and Jesus going up to Jerusalem took the 12 disciples apart in the way and said unto them, behold, we go up to Jerusalem. And so this is where the sentence actually ends, and then it starts a new sentence here where it says, and the Son of Man shall be betrayed unto the chief priests and unto the scribes, and they shall condemn him to death. But the sentence actually finishes here in 20:18, and this word right here where it says, as Jesus was going up to Jerusalem, he took the 12 disciples apart. If you look at the word took, it's the word paralambano. It's Strong's number 3880. So you have the number 88, which represents Christ in there, and the number 3 that represents the Trinity. But this is the word that's used when it talks about how one will be taken and the other left. If you go to Matthew 24, you see that it says, then two in the field, two shall be in the field, one shall be taken and the other left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, one shall be taken and the other left. So this is the word paralambano. It's the same word that comes up in Matthew 20:17, where it says, and Jesus was going up to Jerusalem, took the 12 disciples apart in the way, and said unto them, behold, we go up to Jerusalem. So when you go back to the table, you see that that would have been the very next line, and that's in the matrix. Okay, I'll just show you the matrix over here. You see the words Theophany and Jesus. Those two words are meshed in together here at the top, and then you see Jesus over here, and this is where it says So the last shall be first, and the first last. And as Jesus was going up to Jerusalem, he took the 12 disciples apart, and on the way he said unto them, Behold, we go up to Jerusalem. And so you see that comes up within the matrix right under the words Theophany and Jesus, but the matrix that actually shows up in the matrix here at the bottom goes from Matthew 20:12 through Matthew 20:17. Okay, the other thing that this correlates with is with the word epiphany, which means to appear, or I appear. And I've talked about this before, how it starts with Strong's number 2014, but if you scroll through the Strong's numbers, you see that this word goes through to Strong's 2017. And so this matches up with the table because the word theophany is another word for epiphany, and I'll show you that. Okay, first I'll show you the definition of the word epiphany. It means the manifestation of Christ to the Gentiles as represented by the Magi, a manifestation of a divine or supernatural being. So it means the same thing as theophany, and over here it's talking about the word epiphany in the Greek, which means appearance, a manifestation or appearance. But there's also the feast day, that's the Epiphany. Okay, that would be right here, so I'll click on that. And so you see that there's a holiday called the Epiphany, and this is where it commemorates. It's a Gentile feast. It happens to be the exact midpoint of the blood moon pattern, was on January 5th. Of course, in Jerusalem, the days begin on sunset the day before, and this is celebrated on January 6th every year. Okay, you can see that right there. It's the traditional date of this feast is January 6th, and it commemorates the baptism of Jesus, the Three Kings Day, which has to do with the Magi, and it's also called the Theophany. Okay, it's also known as Little Christmas. So it's interesting that this feast day represents the birth of Christ and the coming of the Magi to see the baby Jesus, but it also represents the baptism of Jesus at the Jordan River. Over here it's saying the Jordan River in the Middle East that flows roughly through the Sea of Galilee and onto the Dead Sea. And so I want to get back to that because that's a very important location. But this is actually where an epiphany took place, when God spoke from heaven and said, it says, and a voice from heaven said, "This is my Son, whom I love, with him I am well pleased." And again, this came up in verse 17. Okay, so I just want to show you the blood moon pattern so you can see that the exact midpoint was January 5th, 2015, and then the very next day is the feast day that's known as the Epiphany. Okay, so the Strong's numbers for the word Epiphany span from Strong's numbers 2014 through 2017, which matches up with this table on the words Theophany. They span from Matthew 20:12 through 2017, came up with 27 matches, which represents the year 2017. And then the very next Strong's number is Strong's number 2018, which is the word epiphero in the Greek, which means to bring upon or against or to bring forward. Okay, and this is the same word that comes up in Genesis 1:2, where it says the earth was formed and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And so the word moved is the Strong's number 2018, which means to bring forward. But I'm about out of time, so I'll have to continue in the next video. Thanks for watching, and God bless you.